Hey, Ed here with Ed Farragon Coaching. Today I want to share a story with you that may help you with this whole virus situation. It was a very powerful experience. I was down in Joshua Tree, California for a couple weeks, and it was week two. I think it was a Monday, so that would have been like a week and a half ago or a couple weeks ago. And I woke up in the morning feeling amazing, like so strong, so happy, just really in my personal power. And maybe 10 minutes later, went to breakfast, sitting around with all the people. There was 50 of us in the group. And maybe half hour later, we're in the lecture hall where we're all learning during the time we were together. And it was about maybe 10 minutes after sitting there, all of a sudden I started feeling really clammy and like almost like I was coming down with something. And I was like, oh my God, like what happened? An hour ago I felt amazing. And all of a sudden now I feel like crap. So I realized that the lady next to me was sniffling. And I thought, man, I've noticed a couple people in this group that are sniffling and it sounded like they were really sick, but no one was talking about it because no one wants to admit they might have the the COVID virus, and it didn't seem that way because they just had a runny nose and they were sniffling, but there was no shortness of breath or any of that kind of other symptoms that the big virus has that's going around. So I sat there and it occurred to me like something else was happening. So I paused and I tuned into my body and I said, where do I feel this cold or flu, whatever you want to call it? Where is it like showing up in my body? And I just felt clammy all over, but right down through the left side of me, I felt kind of, that weak feeling in my body. So I asked myself the question, how is this familiar to me? And immediately what came up was when I was a kid, I used to get sick a lot. And years ago, I realized with an exploration around that I would get sick as a way to draw attention to myself. And my parents were not very affectionate when I was a child. So what I would do is I would get sick and I would get touched. My mom would touch me on the head or she'd rub Vicks on my chest. And, that felt really good other than the fact that I was sick. Well, I realized this, of course, many years after I used to do that as a strategy to draw attention to me. But even more importantly, I was thinking, I also feel like a real victim when I'm in that space, when I'm feeling all this pain and kind of like yucky. But it made no sense between an hour earlier that day that I was feeling so empowered and powerful in my body. Like, why would I end up in that feeling of feeling like a victim? But I felt like a victim. And I didn't know where that was coming from. But what I did at that moment was I took a hand and I said, okay, what does personal power feel like? And what does victim feel like? And so I played with that whole idea. I sat there listening to the lecture while that was going on. In my head, I'm going, okay, when I'm in my power, I feel like this. And I started feeling that in my body. And then when I feel like a victim, it feels like this. And it was really easy for me to differentiate those two. So it occurred to me that if I stay with the personal power part of it and really keep trying that on in my body, it might like help me to get rid of that flu-like symptoms. So I did, I played with it. And about an hour into playing with it, like my symptoms virtually disappeared. And throughout the day, they came and went, but they were nothing like they were when I saw it happening in slow motion. Well, by the next day, I was 100%. I felt so good. I was like, wow, what was that? Like, what just happened right there? And what I got was that, wolves in the wild, when they see a herd of animals, they can sense right away, like the weakest animal in the herd, and they will attack that animal. And I think viruses are the same way. I think that viruses is part of like the food chain and the dynamics of the wild, where a virus will go to the weakest link in the population, in our case. And so the lesson for me is when I go into that victim energy, I'm more vulnerable to get a virus or a cold or any kind of sickness. So I think that this might be really useful for a lot of people. And my encouragement to you is just to tune in daily. If you're feeding the fear, you're probably slipping into that victim energy. So if you're not feeding the fear, then ask yourself, what are you trying to create in your life? Are you turning on Netflix? Are you, arguing with your family because you're irritated that they're making all this noise because you guys are around each other so much? If you're practicing the isolation thing, ask yourself, what are you doing with your life now that everything is changing? And my encouragement is to put your energy, into your personal power, to put it towards what do I want to create in my life? And start thinking about that, and maybe get a piece of paper out and plan it and use some colored pencils and strategize, like what would your ideal life look like? And start moving yourself in that direction so you can create from a place of power versus feeling disempowered by staying home, not going shopping, or going back to work, or whatever we all have to do, if we decide to stay home and isolate so we don't keep spreading the virus around. So anyway, I thought that was a useful story. It was very powerful for me. It was very clear to me that this COVID virus, is like on a seek and destroy mission to find the weakest link in the herd, and it's adapting. And I think maybe if we all step into our personal power, it's like an easy defense, as an inoculation opportunity to inoculate against this thing. And I don't know that to be true, but I'll let you decide for you if that feels right for you. But I would encourage you to play with that dynamic and see what feels true. And either way, you can't lose, especially if you focus on what you want to create versus what are all the problems going on in the world today. So I hope that's useful. Many blessings today. Hope you have a wonderful week ahead of you. If you're held up in a house with your family, hold them close to you. Life is much more precious, as we know, as we experience this all together. And keep eating healthy and get lots of rest. All right. Many blessings.